Hello and welcome to the first in the series of webinars from Pattrns. My name's Jack and I'm one of the co-founders here. Myself and my business partner Josh, who you'll be seeing in one of the upcoming videos and series, we've got a combined sort of 20 years plus in the digital industry. And so we've been through a lot of the common pitfalls that people face, particularly small businesses when they're setting up their first campaigns. And we've got a few tips here and kind of strategic ideas that might help you get ahead when it comes to Google Ads and digital marketing and all things in the digital realm. So without further ado, we'll jump in here. The first thing we're going to cover in this series is Google Ads and the Google Suite. In particular, we want to focus on paid search today, which is one of the key sort of tenets when it comes to lead and sales acquisitions on Google. But it's worth noting that there's plenty of different things you can do in the Google Suite. You can run ads across the YouTube display, discovery networks, Gmail, everywhere really. And just to cover these off in some detail, you have YouTube, which is very much a video software platform, as you know, very useful for reaching people in high volumes, doing brand awareness plays, things like that. Display, which you may have seen and interacted with yourselves, is ads that you typically see that maybe follow you around on the internet with products or services that you've previously seen. Again, very much a reach platform, very similar to what you might want to do in real life on, say, a billboard or the side of a bus, very much designed to stimulate mental availability. Discovery, which is always useful for small brands when you're up and coming. It's a way for people to see and engage with your brand across a number of different platforms. And app campaigns, if you have an app, you can get people to download that app across the different networks. Again, really useful for those. But really, we'll cover all of those in a lot more detail. Really, what we want to talk about today is paid search. Paid search is, without a doubt, one of the most important platforms that we have available. And it's really where Google started out all those years ago. And really what paid search is a way of dominating ad landscape results. You'll see here from this example, the paid ads are typically what we see at the top of the Google search engine. Google offer these as a primary way for you to become discoverable. You often will see them above the organic results, which come slightly further down the page. Paid ads are really an incredibly useful tool for advertisers to take different searches that people would put into Google and ensure that their ads are available there to be seen when people need them. So the reason why Google offers such a powerful tool is because it really is a database of human intention. When people go to Google, they come often with a question or a problem, some sort of answer that they're looking for, or a problem that they need to be solved. And so when we can use those searches and we can understand people's intention, the type of needs that they're expressing, we can match those searches to our products and services and ensure that there's a really high chance that the people we're trying to get in front of have a need for the type of thing that we offer. So that's why it's really powerful, and it's often why we start with Google and ahead of other things like Meta or Facebook ads. All these types of things, all of them are useful, but often when it's a particular thing or a specific product or service you're trying to sell, it's going to be a lot. You're never going to find something as useful as Google, because someone's going to go, if you're selling red trainers and someone goes to Google and searches for red trainers, you know that there's a really high chance that you can sell your product. So that's why it's such a useful product. Understanding paid search is the next kind of thing we want to cover. And really it's about the model itself. So you might sometimes hear paid search referred to as PPC, or pay per click. And the reason for that is because when you advertise on Google, you only pay when somebody clicks on your ad. So you can see here on the right-hand side, there's an example. Someone's gone into Google and searched for football academies in London. Now, as an advertiser, if this is something that we offer, we obviously want to make sure that we appear in this type of search. The higher up you can appear, the better, because you have more chance of being seen. So essentially, we would enter into what's called an auction when someone performs this search, and someone will be displayed with all these different ads here, all these different advertisers vying to try and get in front of the potential customer. And what would happen is when these people enter into this auction, the ads are displayed. And if I was to, for example, click on the first ad, only the first advertiser will pay for that click. The rest of the advertisers are not charged just for appearing here. Now, that makes it quite a cost-effective means of acquiring customers, because we don't have to pay essentially until someone visits our websites and potentially interacts with the brand, which is incredibly useful. So it works in a slightly different way from search engine optimization, which is the results you would typically see underneath these searches. They are all based on Google's kind of crawling infrastructure, which essentially will take a look at all of your website content, and it kind of logs and understands that content. And at the point at which someone searches, Google will display thousands of different options that it deems to be most relevant. Paid search is the way we can get in front of that queue, and we can be really kind of high intent focused and make sure we trigger ads when people perform relevant searches. So why would you choose paid search over that SEO route? Well, the first reason really is that you don't have to wait. And SEO can often be quite a long, drawn-out process. It can take years to optimize sites in the right way to rank highly for SEO results. With PPC, we can effectively set this up and have it working in a matter of hours. And as long as you have the correct setup, you can begin appearing immediately. So it's a very quick way to get in front of customers. Obviously, you only pay when a user clicks your ad, which makes it highly competitive as an advertising medium. You can fully control the ad messaging, which is really important. You can make this read exactly how you want to convey the right tone of voice, the right message, and the right sales copy to try and get as many people on your site as possible. It also allows you to defend your brand, because there's nothing stopping other advertisers from taking your brand name and appearing for searches that contain your brand name. So obviously that can be quite damaging for some brands, and bidding on your own brand and making sure you appear for your own brand is a way to ensure that you really control the narrative around your brand. Lastly, in the same way you defend your brand, you can actively go and target other people's brands. So if you know that there's a sort of section of brands that do a similar thing to you or offer a similar service, you can go and target those brands and maybe run a message saying, if you like brand X, we are brand Y and we're half the price, or we offer twice as much, something like that. And it's a really compelling way to try and take market share directly from competition. So what does this all look like? And what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at the theory and this kind of structure of Google Ads accounts and campaigns. And then we're going to dive into a real world example, and we'll set up a campaign for you guys to see, so that you can see what it looks like and avoid some of the common pitfalls. So the first thing to note is that you'll always start with an account. You would create an account particularly for the whole business, or if you run across multiple geographies, you may want to create a particular account per geography. But usual best practice is just to create one Google Ads account, which will then allow you to house all of your ads in there. All of your billing details and everything like that can all be done at that Google Ads account level. But then the first thing you'll run into when you're setting up a PPC campaign is the campaign itself. And really, this is where we want to organize campaigns really by a kind of theme. So if you have, for example, a website where you sell clothes, you may want to have one campaign for shoes, one campaign for menswear, one for women's wear, one for accessories. Really sort of tightly defined themes that don't tend to cross over is how you want to structure your campaigns. And that's really the first level. The second level you come to is the ad group level. And at ad group level, this is where you want to split things into a little bit more detail. So imagine you have that same website which sells clothes. At the campaign level, you might want to have shoes. And you have a campaign for all the shoes on the website. Now, in ad group 1, you may want to have boots. And ad group 2, you might want to have trainers. Ad group 3, sandals, and so on. And so it's really the ad group level is where you can start to break things down in terms of detail and really kind of splitting up that campaign into its constituent parts. And then the last thing to mention there would be the keywords, which we'll come on to now. The keywords are really the matching mechanism and the way that you instruct Google into what you want to create. And they are all uploaded into the ad group level along with the ad itself. So all of the main kind of work is done at the keyword and ad level. Those are housed inside ad groups and they are in campaigns. So that sort of structure, that 3-phase structure you need to be aware of: campaign, ad group, keyword. So keywords themselves, this is where it starts to get a little bit more complicated. But fortunately, there's Some simple ways to remember what's going on here. We've got a graph or a table rather that you can see here, which really does a good job of outlining the kind of principles behind keywords. So think of keywords as the real, the main concept behind pay-per-click. A keyword is something that you use to tell Google, when someone makes this search, this keyword search, display my ad for me. And it's really, really simple. So if you have something like iPhone case, for example, if that's what you sell on your website, that will be in one of your ad groups. And you will say to Google, in the case of exact match, every time someone makes the search for iPhone case, I want you to trigger one of my ads. And that's how you really instruct Google what you want it to do. So in this case, exact match. What do we mean by exact match? Well, exact match, which is denoted by these brackets outside the keyword, means that we want to be hyper specific. We only want to show a search when someone puts in the keyword iPhone case. And so you imagine if all you do is you sell iPhone cases, you may well have very few keywords in your account for things related to iPhone case. When someone performs that search, you can see here what it would show for iPhone case, iPhone cases. So exact match may include pluralizations, things like that, misspellings. But generally speaking, it allows you to be really, really structured. So if you are a small business, have a very limited budget, you have a very few kind of specific keywords or searches that you think are applicable to your business, you can set up a very small campaign with a very tightly grouped set of keywords that you can choose. And you make sure that you only display your ads when people search for your brand or your keywords. So that's exact match. Basically, for very tightly themed searches that we want to make sure there's no kind of room for error there. The next step up from that is phrase match. Now, phrase match is similar to exact match, but it allows us to be a little bit more flexible. So you can see here that what will happen in the case of phrase match is we will say trigger a search or trigger an ad when the search term that someone puts into Google contains the phrase iPhone case. Now, what that might mean is we have blue iPhone case, red iPhone case, or in this case, iPhone case waterproof. The key thing to remember here is that as long as the word or the phrase iPhone case appears, it will trigger. And that really allows us some sort of economies of scale here, because if you have an account where there are hundreds or thousands of different permutations of iPhone case, then it can be time consuming and a little bit inefficient if you have to manually input all of them. And using phrase match is a nice way of us being able to broaden the search criteria and say, look, we don't care if it's red iPhone case, blue iPhone case, new, old iPhone case, whatever it may be, as long as it features those keywords, we're happy for the ad to show. So that really gives us a lot of freedom, and it really leads us into the top and most broad type of keyword we have, which is broad match. Now you see there's no syntax around broad match, it's just a kind of bare keyword. And again, this really is where we lean into Google's more advanced features. So over the years, Google has got progressively better at understanding what thematically searches are and how they relate to other things. So Google now knows that iPhone case is looking for phone cases and generally things to do with the handset market. So it will understand that despite the fact that iPhone case is specifically mentioned in the keyword, it knows that Apple phone case is the same thing. Apple phone protection would probably trigger, and you can even relate this to things like trainers. So if in the UK you were to perform a search like red Nike trainers or something along those lines, Google will still trigger a search for red Nike sneakers, because it understands that those two words are interchangeable. And so where this is quite useful is if you have a product or service that is a little bit more difficult to define, or you really want to reach as many people that might be in the category as possible, you can use broad match, and Google will then try and match you to people who have the same sort of searching intent as your keyword. Now, obviously, the drawbacks of this is that the kind of specific nature of the keywords that we've got in exact match will no longer be relevant, and you may well find that you match to things that are outside of your particular keyword set. So really, the way we recommend that you implement keywords is you start off with exact match. Once you're happy with the way those keywords are performing and you think, well, maybe we want to scale up and find some additional customers, Then you can go to phrase match, where you'll start to match to slightly more searches. And if you still find you've reached, or you've kind of fully maximized there, you would then go to broad match, and that will give you your incremental reach, your incremental growth that you might need. So that's a summary of keywords. As I said, always start off with exact match and then lean into the others as and when you need to. So from the ads point of view, paid search ads have evolved quite a lot over the years. And the main theme here really is that they've become slightly more difficult to register than they have previously. So when it very first started, you can see a lot of differentiation. The colors are different. We've even had instances of really kind of bold ad signaling here. And now you tend to see that there's actually very little difference between SEO links and PPC links, which as an advertiser is probably, quite a good thing, because it means people are somewhat ad blind. But nonetheless, it's just worth being aware of that this is kind of what they look like. Now, when we look at the nature of the ad, there are a few things to be aware of here. And we have all the different elements of the ads, ranging from the headlines, which you can see here. These are the bold parts, which really help your ads stand out. This is where you might want to feature your brand name or any really compelling offers, discounts, anything that's really going to grab attention. You have your URL, which we pulled from the website. You have the description here, which is where you can start to explain in a little bit more detail the type of offers or services that you have. And then you have these things here called ad extensions, which we'll come on to. But this is the basic anatomy of the ad, and these are the things you need to be aware of: is headlines, descriptions. These are the key components that make up the ad. And how you write these ads is really important. You want to feature as many things like calls to action as possible. So encouraging people to, shop now, book today, don't miss out. All these types of things can be really useful when you're trying to encourage people to take action and click onto your website. So ad extensions, we mentioned them before. It's just worth being aware that these are typically really good ways of improving click-through rates on your ads. So a lot of people sometimes when they very first set up Google Ads campaigns, they forget to add these in. You have these here, these site link extensions. These are image extensions, and they offer ways for people to navigate to different pages on the website. So here you'll see there's a book now option that'll take you to a different page from the top reviewed hotels, and they're just ways of embellishing the ad to offer more places for people to navigate on your website and find different content. Now, with regard to how this all works, so you might be thinking, how does Google decide which advertisers have spot 1, which ones have spot 2, which ones spot 3, all those types of things? Now, in a sort of very basic way of looking at it, Google could have gone down the route of whoever bids the most. So at the time of the auction, which is what we call the selection process, Google will essentially say, how much are you prepared to trigger your keyword? What sort of monetary value are you willing to put against it? And if that was the case, you might find that all search landscapes are dominated by really big advertisers with massive budgets. So to get away from that and to ensure that Google offers the most relevant and high quality searches to users at the time of searching, because of course, if Google returns poor results, people will stop using it. The way Google prevents that is that they do ask you for what your maximum bid is, but they also then feature elements of quality score. And quality score is a key component in PPC, something you need to be aware of. If you have very good quality score, it can often offset a lower bid. And the way quality score is looked and kind of calculated is really just by looking at things like the quality of the ads that you build, how relevant the website you have is compared to the search. So if you are an airline and someone searches for something that's totally unrelated, and you take them through, they look for a London to New York flight, and you take them to somewhere completely different, London to Paris, your quality score will drop because you've not done what you've promised. And you can see a really good example here. You've got an advertiser here bidding £6 for a keyword. This advertiser bids 10 and this one 8. Now, advertiser 1 is sending people through to a really high quality page that loads quickly, has relevant content, it's really easy to use. This advertiser has got a really poor ad, a really poor landing environment, irrelevant content, and this advertiser has got somewhere in between, so not too bad. The keywords might be slightly relevant, but you can see that this advertiser who's put a massively aggressive bid in actually comes out in second place in the ad auction, because they definitely don't have this quality score component that Google puts so much value on. So this is the way to remember it, is that your maximum bid is always really important, but making sure that everything is really tightly themed and makes a lot of sense and reads well from a usability perspective. That's how you ensure that your PPC is always working efficiently. So bid strategies. These are something that's fairly new in the Google space. Traditionally, advertisers would have been asked to manually put keyword bids against every keyword, and that became quite time consuming. And given the sort of advancements in Google's sort of AI and machine learning in recent years, we now have significantly more efficient ways of doing our sort of bidding. So when it comes to the campaign creation process, you'll often be faced with different options, and it's worth us sort of running through some of the best and worst ones here, so that you know which to avoid and which ones to maybe go for. So if you're in the business of selling things, typically target ROAS or target CPA are always going to be beneficial for you. Target ROAS particularly means that you can specify a return on ad spend, which essentially means you say to Google, if I spend £1 on marketing, I need to see a return of £10 in sales. When you give Google that instruction, Google can then set your keyword bids in such a way that it will try and record that much revenue for you from the website. So that can be really useful. Target CPA and maximize conversions are both really useful as well. If you have, for example, a sales target where you want to convert users at a cost of £5, or if you're doing lead generation and you want to convert people at a target cost per lead of £5, you can put that target in, and Google will again set your bids to that target, and try and convert users at that cost for you, which helps you a lot with your planning and your kind of business performance objectives. Maximize conversions is a similar type of thing where we're looking at conversions, but the difference here is that this might be more applicable if you have a limited budget. So if you don't have a lot of budget and you want to say, I want to spend £10 a day on marketing and I want Google to get me as many conversions as they can for that budget, that's the way to go for you. The target CPA might be if you have, say, £100 a day, but you don't necessarily want to spend all of it, and you just want to say to Google, there's £100 a day to spend, but I need you to convert users at £5, then Google will kind of work it out. If you are budget constrained, maximize conversions is the way to go. Maximize conversion value works in a similar way to target ROAS. And here's the kind of one we want to avoid, really. Maximize clicks is definitely not a good bid strategy in most cases. The reason being that really Google won't look beyond the click. In all of these instances, Google is analyzing what happens on your website in order to instruct future activity. And so it really kind of learns and improves with time. Maximize clicks, on the other hand, really is just going to push as many different people to click on the ad as possible and not really kind of understand if that user was of good quality or not. And so we generally speaking recommend that you steer away from the maximize click strategies. Conversion tracking is something we'll come on to in a little bit more detail, but it really is sort of just worth bearing in mind, as it's the sort of the main way that we can track actions on the websites. So you can set up things like purchases, form submissions, they're all trackable. App downloads are trackable. Phone calls, either from the website or from the ad itself, are all possible. And you can, of course, import offline conversions from things like CRM platforms. And so these conversions are what we can configure in the sites. And once we have them in the sites, we can then push them into the platform as a way for Google to learn and understand exactly how it's working. So important concepts there, but we will come onto those in a bit more detail in future webinars. So now we'll jump into a live demo where we can explore the actual creation process in a little bit more detail. So here you can see a live dashboard from the Google Ads interface. Here we're in a account that we've been running for some time. You can see the accounts in here are paused now, or the campaigns are paused, but you can see here's all of our different campaigns. Here's all the metrics associated with them. You can see conversions, you can see the cost per conversion, You can see the number of interactions, so how many clicks they've had, how many impressions, which is how many times someone's seen the ad, and the average cost per click, which is also something that's there to be aware of. So if this was the first time we were setting up a campaign, we might want to come into this campaign, click that new campaign button, and from here we'll see the kind of interaction that we need. So typically speaking, you're going to want to follow, assuming it's a sales business, the sales goal. If you're in the business of lead generation, it will be leads. And a lot of these kind of goals will help you find the right campaign type. When it comes to paid search in particular, usually we're going to be picking one of these, potentially website traffic. But for now, we can go ahead and click sales. This is where we'll use, or in this case, actually, we'll use leads. And you can see here that we've got a lead form goal. This goes back to the conversion tracking we spoke about. So the lead form goal, that's now available. We'll continue with that. And this is where we want to click search. So as I mentioned before, there's plenty of different options available for us. In this particular example, we want to click search. In the ways we'd like to reach that goal is website visits and lead form submissions. We can obviously put in the details there around the website address, what we would go through, give that campaign a name. This will do for now. Start a new one. We don't have any drafts. Here on the bidding, this is where we spoke about those bid strategies. What do we want to focus on? We want to focus on conversions. At this time, we don't want to set a target cost per action, which we could do, a target CPA. But at the moment, we just want to set a small budget and allow Google to do as much work as we can. This is a crucial step here. So by default, Google will include both the search and the display network when you set up a new campaign. We always want to ensure that this is not ticked. The display network expansion will essentially try and get your ads to appear across the display network, so as sort of responsive image ads, and it, generally speaking, just doesn't want to work. We want to make sure that when we trigger an ad, it's because someone goes into Google and performs a search, not because they're searching on a web page that happens to feature the similar sort of keywords as we've got in the account. So always make sure this is unticked. We want to select our location, which in this case will be the United Kingdom, languages, which will be the UK and English. And then we can go ahead and click next, and we can ignore the automatically created assets for now. Here we get to the ad group stage. So this is what we mentioned earlier about the ad group. So this is where we would have, if we had our campaign here, which was at, for example, looking at websites or something like that, or in this, the example we went back to earlier, which was clothes. If this was, let's say, the shoes campaign, we might want to call this campaign boots. And in here, we would go down to enter keywords. We would want to start off with our exact match, like we mentioned. So here we would put in black boots as an exact match keyword. Maybe another one for red boots, and potentially even looking at men's boots. Giving ourselves a few options, but ensuring that everything is really tightly themed in here is key. And then we come on to the ads themselves. So this is where we spoke earlier about the headlines, descriptions. You can see a mock-up here of the ad. And essentially what we would do here is go through and fill out all the different options. You can see there's some suggestions here, but ensuring we have as many different headlines and descriptions as possible makes our ads come across as sort of strong and relevant as we can, and just gives us the best chance of people seeing those ads. So once you've uploaded all your copy, you would then move on to the budget section. And this is, again, where we're going to put in a budget that we're happy with, how much we're willing to spend. You can see some recommended metrics here in terms of the average cost per acquisition, the weekly cost, the weekly clicks, and the amount of conversions we can expect. So these are really good benchmarks for you to use to help you set your budgets. And then we would go on to this review stage. And this is where we can really review all of those settings, make sure we're happy with how the campaign is structured, check to see if there's any issues, have a look through everything here, make sure we're happy. And then we'll be in a position where we can enable that campaign just simply by clicking publish. and that campaign would then be active, and we'd be able to review all the settings and kind of keep an eye on that campaign as time goes on, making optimizations to things like budgets, adding and removing keywords as and when we see fit, and generally speaking, making sure we hit the performance targets that this campaign has. So I guess that's a brief 101 when it comes to a paid search campaign. Obviously, it can be quite daunting at the start, but as long as you stick to some of those key principles, it should all be fine. And we will cover in detail a lot more of the topics we've touched on today, particularly with regard to some of the more, upper funnel, if you like, some of the more reach-based campaigns that are available in Google Ads. But as always, if there's anything we can do to help, if you'd like to talk a bit more about how to set up paid search campaigns that are applicable to you, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be more than happy to give you a hand. So until next time, thanks a lot for watching, and keep tuned for the next in the series with the webinars, which will be around paid social and meta ads. So thanks a lot, guys.